Hey folks, welcome to Ink, Coffee, and Regrets. This will be the second episode of my podcast, the first full episode. But before I get started, I wanted to talk about something. Part of the reason there's a little bit of delay in getting this episode out is that I had to take a little trip to Alaska. My mom passed away. She was 84. She had a good, long life. I'm not upset about her passing because we got to talk a lot, say everything we needed to say to one another. But in the end, she had lost her vision, her ability to hear, and she wasn't able to walk anymore. So she was more or less a prisoner in her own body. She didn't really have a life anymore. She just simply existed. I'm happy that she and I did get to talk using the TTY system and share our feelings back and forth. And happy to say at the end, I don't feel that there was anything left unsaid. All that said, I have to give a great amount of kudos to my brother, Benjamin, who lived up there and was there for her firsthand. I could only be on the phone because there's a 2,700 mile distance, but he was there. He helped her. He did what he could for her. And for that, I'm immensely proud of him. And if you're listening, Ben, you did a great job. I can't express how grateful I am for what you've done for her. Thank you. Now, that said, let's get on with the show. Today, we're going to be talking about AI and the writing path specifically. So grab that first cup of coffee and let's go ahead and get into it. Today, I'm sipping something wildly unremarkable, Kirkland's Bold Roast. I like Costco. I'll go there as often as I can. I get what I can. The coffee they sell is good, but it's not something you're going to write home about. So send an email. Tell me what you guys drink. Maybe I'll give it a try. When you hear about AI, well, think about AI. What's the first thing that pops into mind? 9000 from 2001, Space Odyssey. All right, so that's for the vintage crowd. Let's update the references. What about Gertie from Moon? Got any clones sitting in the cryo in your house that you're waiting to activate anytime soon? Skynet? I would like to drop a Schwarzenegger catchphrase here somewhere, but I don't want to get a copyright slap. Or do we think of Joy from Blade Runner? Are you feeling romantic yet? There are plenty of AI archetypes out there. Some helpful, some homicidal, some heartbreakingly holographic. But you get the idea of where we're going with this. Now, in your actual life, what you do day to day, when you're not listening to me, of course, what is your experience with AI? How do you use AI? Most of us have heard the usual suspects, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, and the like. Some of us even use them, looking for obscure trivia, crafting recipes, or writing passive-aggressive letters to relatives we'd rather ghost but feel socially obligated to acknowledge from time to time. Yeah, you know the ones, Uncle Jenny or Aunt Bob. The ones the family tree have with the wildest branches. Of all the tech floating around today, I think AI, or more specifically large language models, LLMs, are among the most misunderstood tools. And that's what they are, tools. They're not sentient beings. They're not your new best friend. They're not your girlfriend. They're not your therapist. Though they do listen better than some humans do. They listen better than some relatives do in some cases. From a writer's perspective, I see a lot of misuse. Industrial scale misuse even. Let me tell you how I use these tools. Personally, I lean towards Claude and Copilot. They're friendlier to writers, I think, less robotic and more collaborative, like a helpful intern who doesn't ask for coffee breaks or health insurance. Yes, I know there are programs out there specifically for writing. I'm not going to mention their names, but I don't use them to write. And the only reason I use the AIs that I do use is to refine what I have already written. There's a big difference. For instance, I loathe naming characters. If I sit down and want to write a new story, I hate having to sit there and come up with different names for the characters. It just gets annoying. It gets kind of obnoxious. And also creating backgrounds for those characters. It gets to the point it's tedious. So I'll take and use the Copilot and I'll tell it to create some names for me. It's like naming your kids, but with less emotional payoff and more existential dread. I'll ask one of my AIs something like this. I'm creating a story set in Nova Scotia during the mid-'80s. I need names and backgrounds for 10 men and 10 women, ages 25 through 30, all locales. Toss in a few quirks, nothing too serial killery. And voila, I get a list of usable names. Sometimes I'll tweak them, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll mold their backgrounds to what I need. and build from there. It allows me a starting point without some of the annoyances of having to sit there and think, okay, I already used Bob. I already used Tom. I already used Joe. You're getting a fresh batch of names, and then you can move forward from there. I've also used AI to create fictional towns and double check that I'm not accidentally naming them after real places. Nothing says lawsuit like setting a romantic comedy in a town that turns out to be a real life toxic waste site. Side note, I don't even try to invent towns in Maine. Stephen King has that state down. If I try to create any place, I'm going to end up putting my romance near the suburbs of Derry and have to worry about clowns from time to time, and in which case grandma's birthday party just got a lot darker. Apologies to Mr. King. Anyway, moving on. I also use the tools for research, or at least to kickstart research. I know enough to realize that they're not always accurate. I treat their output like a first draft. Useful, but in need of some fact checking, especially if I'm writing nonfiction. Fiction, you can fudge a little bit. Nobody really will care, especially if you put it in the disclaimer that it's fiction. But even then, it's good to know what you're fudging. LLMs, what we're calling AI, aren't 100% trustworthy. They're like that friend who tells great stories but occasionally insists that giraffes are from Iceland. When I ask you a question, your answer isn't just a serial fact dump. Your answer is going to be a cocktail of experience, trial and error, half-remembered advice from your high school English teacher, and whatever emotional seasonings life has thrown along the way. Whether you like it or not, your response carries your fingerprints. Your response is going to be unique to you. It carries your biases, your inflections, and occasionally, I read it on Reddit, so it must be true. Things like that are all going to be thrown into whatever you respond when I ask you a question. Even something as simple as, what do you think of 21 Pilots? Your responses are going to be unique to you. They're going to be based on your experiences. That's human. We learn to absorb, we distort. Over time, our thoughts get marinated in memory and mood. It's messy, it's beautiful, it's human. Everybody's unique, and everybody does it, even if you think you don't. Now, contrast that with today's AI systems. What we're dealing with, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, etc., is essentially a glorified search engine with a charming personality. Yes, technically it is artificial intelligence, but let's not confuse sentience with sapience. Sentience is the ability to respond, and they do that. They do respond, and they even do a pretty good job of adding fictionalized emotions to their response. It can get kind of uncanny valley. But sapience is the ability to understand what you're being asked and your response. Not just knowing what you're responding to, not just putting things together you find on the internet into a haphazardous document, but looking at it and saying, okay, this is my understanding of what I'm giving you. This is going to be built off of my experiences. And that's where the wires get crossed. These systems can mimic understanding, but they don't digest meaning. They don't contextualize. They don't sit back and say, that's tragic. They just say, here's a paragraph. You're welcome. So where does this fit into writing? I'm glad you asked. Pour yourself another cup of coffee, preferably something stronger than Kirkland, and let's get into it. There's no doubt that AI can write a novel. People are doing it all the time. Short stories, essays, papers, you name it. The machines are churning out things like literary sausage. You see it all the time now. Half the emails I get, I'm willing to bet, are probably churned out by some kind of AI out there that happens to grab my name and a couple of things I do or don't like, and then spits it out and almost makes it sound like someone I know. I even think there's a couple of my friends that occasionally respond to me using AI engines. But that's a story for another day. But I have major issues with the people who are putting these things out. You're not creating. Don't fool anybody. You throw a few catchwords in, a few scenarios, a few names, and then you say, build me a story. That's not creation. That's literary vomit. You're outsourcing creativity to a machine that doesn't know what heartbreak feels like. You're not building something to be proud of. You're assembling an IKEA fiction with no Allen wrench for emotion. Sure, you might feel clever, but clever isn't the same as creative. Clever doesn't use personal aspiration. You didn't wrestle with the plot. You didn't agonize over character arcs. You didn't even cry when your protagonist made a terrible decision and had to pay a price. You didn't kill your darlings. You just clicked generate. Your characters, typically flat. Your dialogue, functional, but no depth. It's like looking at a flat surface. It's like reading microwave manual instructions. The emotional depth is a tax form. I've read some of these AI stories, and while they're not bad per se, they fell into that uncanny valley. They seem to fit tropes. They kind of match existing paths that other stories have taken. Because that's where some of this stuff comes from. When you use AI to do this, you're not generating anything new. It's going out onto the internet and looking for hundreds of thousands of other things, taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and a little bit from that other thing, and putting them together in a way that marginally represents a story that's passable by most standards. Is it going to win any awards? God, I hope not. Is it going to make people happy? Maybe. If you're from the Harlequin romance generation and you read all those cookie cutter stories where only the names and places were changed, then these stories are probably for you. But if you're looking for depth of character, if you're looking for something that kind of gets you, you're probably not going to find it in these things. If you're a writer, or if you just dabbles in writing, you probably know what I mean about some of the stuff I've been talking about. If not, here's your homework. I want you to sit down and write a story, no more than 500 words, about a boy who has the power to shape time and help others, but not himself. Each time he uses his powers, it drains more of his life. In the end, he dies from using it. But in the afterlife, he's given a gift. So I want you to write the 500 words. Best thing you can do. You don't even have to share it with me. If you want to share it with me, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to publish it. I'm not going to take credit for it. It'll just be really interesting to read. Now, once you've written it, put it aside. Go to the AI system of your choice, ChatGPT, Claude, any of them, and ask it to write the same story in 500 words. Compare them side by side and look at the difference between the two. If there's any doubt in what I've told you before, you'll see it there. It'll probably be a very compelling story. It'll probably be good. But when you read it, do you have the same emotional response to it as what you wrote? The difference is the one you wrote, you actually put some emotion into. The act of creation created an emotional response. That little 500-word essay you typed, that's your baby. You created it. That little 500-word thing you had ChatGPT do for you, that's not. That is a facsimile based on tens of thousands, possibly millions of other people's works, where it pulled out bits and pieces to create something that it considered to be unique. And I will have to say, within reason, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's lazy. Again, you're not creative. You're not being a creator. If you are one of those people that writes books through AI and publishes them and pats yourself on the back, stop it. Stop patting yourself on the back. It's not creation. The boy's death might feel hollow. The gift of the afterlife, probably vague and uninspired. And the emotional arc, a bit like watching a soap opera on mute. That's what I believe you'll see when you look at the one that the AI created. Have some of you know, read both, and see if they can tell which is the AI-generated item and which is your creation. Don't give them any hints. Just hand them both pieces of paper and have them read it. I think you might be surprised, especially if you give it to someone who really enjoys reading. It's like that scene in The Fly, the Jeff Goldblum movie. Probably some of you were listening to this are too young to have ever seen that. Seth Brundle realizes that the reason his machine isn't letting him teleport humans or living flesh is because the machine doesn't know how the skin feels when you pinch the cheeks. It's hard for me to explain that scene, but it's a good movie. You should rent it or take a look at it. The same with AI writing. It doesn't feel the story. It doesn't mourn the characters if you kill them. It doesn't feel sad when people break up. It doesn't have any grounding for the emotions that you have to put into the story to convey what you're saying. AI doesn't grieve. It just deletes. Somebody told me that and I loved it, so I'm going with it. That said, AI writing isn't all bad. I have used it to create technical manuals before because In my real life, I'm an IT person. Knock yourself out with it if you're doing stuff like that. Honestly, who wants to write that stuff? Okay, fine, I do. But I've been doing technical writing longer than some of you listening have even been alive, and I find it oddly satisfying. There's something beautiful about clarifying, about helping someone fix a thing without wanting to scream. But even then, it gets monotonous, and an AI can help with that. I know AI is here to stay, and I accept that. I probably will be reading machine-made fiction for years to come. I'll keep writing my own work, powered by the old Mark I brain, as long as it still fires, and the hands still type, and the eyes still squint at the screen. Just remember, what I do is creation. If you write, what you do is creation. Creation is something that's still a human trait, something you and I do. What AI does is simulation. If you use an AI to write for you, you're not creating. You're just using a tool to do something you haven't learned to do yourself. And everybody knows how to do it. They just don't choose to. I always tell people, everybody has one book in them. You listening to this have a story in you. You don't need AI. You don't need something else to write it for you. Sit down, add a terminal, fire up a word processor, and start typing. It may suck at first. It may be terrible. But you learn. And each time you write something bad, you learn from that. And the next thing will be that much better. If you have things to add to that, I welcome you to send me an email. I don't have a voice line yet, but that'll be down the road. As always, thank you for listening to the podcast, whether at home, in your car, at work, or even on the toilet. Though if it's on the latter, maybe you don't tell me. Some mysteries are left unsolved. So, all that said, may your ink flow freely, your coffee be warm and inviting, and your regrets be few, but always well edited. Have a great one, folks, and thanks again for listening. Till next time.